Welcome to the Trader, a Traitors podcast. I'm Matthew, a writer and Traitors superfan working in TV development. The Trader features deep dives into every episode of English-speaking versions of The Traitors, as well as contestant interviews. And this season of the podcast is dedicated to Series 3 of The Traitors UK. To help me rip apart episode 4 in the nicest possible way is a guest co-host from my UK Series 2 edition of the podcast, who is returning like someone who abandoned a train and is now trapped in a suspended cage in the forest. Let's find out who it is. Kevin works as an audio describer for TV channels both in his native Ireland and the UK, and is also a podcaster, having produced and hosted the, in Kevin's words, mildly successful pop culture podcast, Things Gay People Like, since 2020. It's more than mildly successful, it's my fave. Some have said the podcast peaked with its most recent episode on Wicked, but he couldn't possibly comment on such matters. In his spare time, he can often be found singing, whether that's in the two choirs he's a member of, coming up with a new jingle for his podcast, or wailing away to Mariah Carey's back catalogue in his bedroom, as he is a certified, dedicated, and faithful #Lamb for life.
Oh
Lamb,
yeah.
welcome back to the Trader. How you
Thank you,
doing?
Lam. Thank you. Happy to be back. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you've been with me before. You're a fan of the Traitors. I probably don't need to ask you all the obvious questions like, do you know what the Traitors is? Have you watched this
Yeah.
show before? You've seen it before. Um,
A few times.
However, I do want to ask about. I kind of did ask you about this before, maybe. Maybe it was on your podcast though.
Yeah.
Irish Traitors. I think we know something else that we didn't know last time I asked you about this. We know who the
Yeah.
host is going to be now. Do you know about
Yeah.
this?
Yeah. Siobhan, right? Siobhan
Yeah,
McSweeney.
Siobhan McSweeney. I'm a big fan. What do you think?
I think great choice, and I think it was actually met with so much positive reactions online,
Yeah.
which people like to moan about things generally, and like people will moan if it was any of the other people I heard were in the frame,
Yeah.
some people would have been moaning about it. Everyone seems to be happy with this announcement, and I am too. Like, I actually don't watch Dairy Girls, which I know is terrible. So I don't really know that much about her. I've seen her on Drag Race. I know it's bad, but like, I just like her energy. I think she's going to be brilliant. I think she's going to have the right level of campness and fun and a little bit of malevolence, maybe. The whole traders
Yeah.
vibe. So really happy with it. Yeah.
Yeah. In case anyone doesn't know, that probably is what she's most known for, is playing the nun in the really sarcastic, dry nun in Derry Girls. I
Mm,
also have a weird love of Siobhan McSweeney because she hosts the Great Pottery Throwdown on Channel 4 here in the UK. The
right.
complete opposite to the Traitors because it's so like lovely and sweet and
Fluffy.
cozy and warm, and but it just fills my heart with joy. So I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really excited for it. And you mentioned in the intro that I do audio description,
Yeah.
which, if people don't know, is adding your voice to programs for blind and low vision viewers so they can understand a bit more. And there is a decent chance, I would say, like, I don't know anything yet, but given what I do for a living, there's a decent chance that I might do the audio description for the Traders Ireland,
Yay.
which would be so exciting.
That'd be cool.
And it would mean that I would see the episodes in advance because obviously you need time to work on them.
Yeah.
But actually, I was looking at on the iPlayer, I was watching an episode with audio description, and actually, it turns out, and this probably makes a lot of sense, but it's a very talky show in general. So there aren't that many opportunities to say that much
Mm.
because as audio describers, we can't talk over dialogue or people speaking. So
Yeah.
you have to find the gaps. But I still think it would be so exciting to even be involved at that level. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Exciting times.
I'm trusting everything that you said there is true because we haven't begun our game of deception yet. Listeners, if you've been listening, you'll know this by now. If you're just joining us at this point, welcome. But I am going to introduce our game of deception and betrayal. This is the Trader Traitor. The mission for Kevin and I from here on in is to tell a lie to one another. The lie has to be a fabrication or a made up fact big or small, about the traitors, about ourselves, about anything. For example, I could lie to Kevin and say that Jack actually won the most coins in the mission in this episode, but producers thought he was a little bit annoying and they changed things so that he didn't stay. However, I couldn't lie and say that I love Jack's mullet. That would be a fake opinion. So we're looking for fake facts, not fake thoughts and feelings. At the end of the podcast episode, Kevin and I will then guess each other's lie, and listeners, you can join in too and see how good you are at traitor detecting. Kevin, we've done this once before. Are you
Yeah,
ready to play the traitor and deceive me?
I'm ready. I find it quite stressful, but I am ready.
Okay, I want it to be stressful. In that case, our game begins now. And I didn't even ask you the most obvious question, actually. How are you enjoying the series so far?
I am enjoying it quite a bit. Obviously, we're 4 episodes in, so like one third of the way in. I have to say, semi-controversially, I came into this series with a notion in my head of when is the bubble going to burst for this thing? Because as we know, there are a lot of beloved reality formats that have come, have been huge, have kind
Hmm.
of taken over the conversation online and just with your friends and everything. And then there comes a point where they peak and then they kind of go down the other side. I don't think we're there yet at all, but I was coming to it thinking, is this going to still feel fresh and interesting and exciting? And to me, it absolutely has. I'm living for 9 o'clock/8 o'clock when it was last week or the previous week. I think I'm here for it in every way. I think what's great as well is I haven't been watching other versions, unlike your other guests who I've listened to, and they're so insightful and knowledgeable. I won't be either of those things, but I just felt ready for a new series of the Traders. I really felt like, oh, I'm so up for it. And unfortunately, in my opinion, we have two new ones, and like it's great for people who just want to can't get enough Traders. I wish the US one was on in March or something, but it
Yeah.
is what it is. We have two, and as of now, I'm loving the UK series. However, last thing, I would like them in future series. If anybody's on the production team listening to this, I'm sure they are. The podcast is in the top 10 on Spotify. I'm sure like lots of important people are listening. Can we please iron the Traders flag that we see? It's too creased, and at this stage of the game, it needs to be nice and ironed.
Okay.
But I'm loving it.
Excellent. I have some overall thoughts on the series so far that I'll share maybe at the end of the podcast.
Oh yeah.
But that's great to hear. And I disagree with what you said. You will be and have been very insightful, and because you're a fan of the show and you're a pop culture and TV fan, and you work in
I
TV,
am.
so
I am. I
you're the
am. But
perfect.
I said something on the last episode that when I listened back, I was like, that literally is a stupid thing to say and shows a fundamental lack of understanding of what this program is. So hopefully none of those. But thanks for having me. I'm
No,
delighted to be back.
Kevin, I've watched like 12 different versions of this show now. I still say ridiculous things that make no sense, and then
Okay.
afterwards go, "Oh, I'm an idiot. That was
Okay.
dumb. I shouldn't have said that."
Okay.
So
Cool.
we're fine.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's time for us to get into it. Here we go, episode 4 of the Traitors UK, series 3. So we start with our usual recap. What happened last time that we need to know? Well, we're sort of reminded of something that happened several episodes ago. So we had Fozia, Alex, and Jack leave the train of their own accord. Why are they reminding us of this now? I wonder. It's so strange. Um,
Yeah.
there's a reminder about like other people keeping secrets apart from the traitors, like Leanne and Lisa, and I guess Charlotte with her fake Welsh accent.
Hmm.
We remember that Maya turned on her sister and the faithful banished their first traitor after they had got rid of poor Ellen and Nathan, who were faithfuls. And it seemed like at the end of the last episode, Maya, Freddie, and Charlotte were the three murder options that the traitors were mulling over after a mission that kept most of the players safe. So here we go. We've got a different opening than normal. Normally we begin at breakfast, fairly straightforward,
Hmm.
but no, it's different this time. Remember at the end of the last episode, we had the carriage and the rail replacement, and it was all exciting. So we sort of flash back to 4 days earlier. It's very cinematic. We've got like the text on the side of the old abandoned train.
Loved
We're
it.
in the junkyard where the train had stopped in episode 1, and we get voiceovers of those three players who chose to leave. and footsteps and a hooded figure appear, beckoning them towards a carriage. What do you think of this whole thing, Kevin? This whole twist?
Yeah, do you know what? Since I saw the little teaser at the end of last Friday's episode, I guess I've been like perched for finding out what happened to those three. And I know you and the podcast have been speculating, will they be coming back? Won't they? And in what way?
Mhm.
I was really happy to see them back. To some degree, I felt really bad for them, thinking that they might have been gone for good. Really wanted to see them back, even though on first glance or on first experience of them, I don't love them all, but I was happy that they got a chance. I thought it was funny that Alexander, I think it was like, oh shit, when he saw the person walking towards them. I'm like, I would say that if it was a researcher or a producer coming to get me to send me home. If it's somebody who's coming in full regalia, like indicating that it's not over, I wouldn't be saying, I wouldn't be unhappy.
Yeah,
No, really happy to see them back. I love the fact that it was a rail replacement thing. Like that's a very British, like specific thing. And yeah, I loved it. I was very pleased that they were going to get another chance to whatever extent it was going to end up being. What about
yeah.
you?
Uh, I'm excited that they're back, and I thought that was going to happen.
Mm.
Unlike you, I don't feel that sorry for them. I think they were
Really?
idiots for getting off that train in the first place. So
Yeah.
I don't really feel for them, but I wasn't surprised that they're back. But I'm excited I was excited to see how it was going to unfold.
Is there any sense of what might have happened had nobody wanted to get off? We don't know, right?
We don't really know. My best
Mm.
guess is they had to get three of them off somehow, so they must have had something in place, like a random way of choosing them. Like
Mm.
they wouldn't do this, but like alphabetically, or they just pick whoever's sitting in a particular seat number on the carriage or
Yeah.
something like that.
Or do you
Um,
think there's any chance that like a member of the production team will be like, look, guys, this is not going to be the actual end of the road. So do you think would that go against the spirit of the game and everything?
maybe if they were forced to, the on-set team might give them a bit of a hint, like
Yeah,
heads up, this isn't. Yeah, maybe they would step in and just heavily imply, don't worry too
yeah.
much.
Because I
Yeah,
would just be like, I'm not going anywhere.
yeah,
And I
me
was
too.
surprised that three people wanted to. And
Yeah,
I just think it's such a huge production and so much is relying on things working as they're supposed to work. Why would you risk everyone going, well, I'm not going anywhere. Anyway, that's
yeah.
4 days ago. We're back to now. Yeah.
We're back to now, and so we head to breakfast as normal.
Mm.
We've got Tyler. He's celebrating the banishment. He makes a football reference. So immediately I just sort of, it just became fuzzy noise to me.
Yeah.
And then when I zoned back in, he's talking about Freddie and Cass. He's sure that they are the two or two of the remaining traitors. Anyway, and
Mhm.
Leon is in agreement. Like Cass is definitely coming back. He's a traitor. There's no way he's going to get murdered. Linda arrives. It's so funny. There's such split opinion on Linda, I think. Well, I think everybody agrees she's probably not an amazing traitor.
Mhm.
Some people are like, God, she's so annoying because she's so bad at this. I think she's hilarious. I think she's great. I just like when she's on screen, I want to see what she's going to do or say that's ridiculous next. So I'm enjoying Linda. How do you feel about
Yeah.
Linda?
I'm probably in the other camp. Like I
You're
think
over it.
yes, there are funny moments, and we love the not very convincing line deliveries that she's given us, and she is, going viral in many ways. But I just think she's not very good, and it's
Yeah.
annoying me because we'll come on to her. The other trader is so good
Yeah.
that I wish she had someone better to be scheming with. But
Okay.
like I loved Linda's even in this episode. I'm so curious who's gonna come in. Like that is fun, but I just wish there was someone at a higher level of competence. That seems
Sure.
cruel, but like, Mina is so good
Yeah.
that I wish, and maybe there will be after this episode, someone
Wow.
who's a bit more on her level. But yeah.
Yeah, maybe. What's funny about Linda here to me is she comes into breakfast and she says, I'm glad, Armani went before me. She says, I'm glad I wasn't the first traitor out. And it just made me think that's so funny that her aspirations are not to win, just not to be the first traitor out. Like, I think that she's quite happy now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, she's looking forward she likes seeing everyone's reactions to the murder because she's in on the secret. And so she's getting a little bit of fun out of all of this.
Mm.
Tyler suggests that he thinks Freddie's a traitor, and he thinks that Freddie is going to murder Maya. Maya is going to be the one that doesn't come back because yesterday she brought up his name as a main suspect. But then Dan counteracts that and he's like, well, that's too obvious. He surely wouldn't do that. Tyler also says that he's shifted his suspicions a bit more away from Kaz towards Freddie, which ends up being quite important as the episode goes on. Of
Mhm.
course, Kaz arrives. He walks in. We knew that he was going to be okay. Even he knew that he wasn't really worried about being murdered. There were so
Mm.
many suspicions on him. He thought, no way are the traitors going to get rid of me. They want to keep me around because I'm high up on the banishment list. He is still annoyed about why people are accusing him. And it is essentially because of his occupation. He's a doctor and he's nice and he's smart. So
Mm.
I talked about this on the last episode with David. Yeah, I would be annoyed as a player if that's what people were going on because I don't know how you defend yourself against your job and your personality.
Mhm.
Mina arrives then. She's having a
Did you
great.
see the cheers for her? People
Uh,
were like
yeah,
standing up for her. Like people love her in there, as they
yeah,
should. I love her, but it's just an indication of how she has people wrapped around her finger. Like it was probably the best reaction for anybody coming in that we've seen, and I was thrilled to see it, delighted to see it.
yeah. And she even says, like, I'm pretty sure no one suspects me. Like, she
Mm,
knows that she's doing well.
yeah,
As far as we can see, she's correct.
yeah,
Maybe here and there people are mentioning her name, but it's
yeah.
certainly
Because
not
everyone's
making the
mentioning
edit.
everyone at some point, right? Like it has to
Yeah,
be. You have to consider everyone, but like, yeah, she's doing so well. Yeah.
yeah. So the next, the Jeeps arrive outside. We've got the dramatic build up. Who's it going to be? Who's coming back? And in walks Freddie and Charlotte.
Mm.
I felt like this was a real anticlimax because what I should clarify is in the last episode of the podcast, David and I, my co-host David Bloomberg, we thought right the completely obvious thing is they will just murder Maya because everybody knows she's a faithful now because of how
Hmm.
she reacted to her sister Armani being banished, and she was so upset. It was just so clear she's a faithful. She's really upset that her sister was a traitor, and she was the one to sort of help get rid of her and all that stuff.
Mm.
But then at the end of the last episode, they showed us like it was like the last thing in the episode is this confessional from Mina saying our decision about murder, it's going to spin everyone's mind. No one's going to see this coming and stuff. So I thought, oh
Oh
God, they're
yeah.
going to do
Okay.
something crazy. They're not going to get rid of Maya. But they just get rid
Right.
of her anyway. And I thought, why
Okay.
did they show us that clip of her saying it was going to like blow
Yeah.
everyone's
Yeah. Yeah.
minds?
Yeah.
Um, David did suggest, and I think he's right, maybe what she meant was, and she says this late at 2 minutes, we got rid of two sisters in the space of like 12 hours. That maybe
Hmm.
that's the thing that's going to blow everyone's minds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in fact, right here we get the flashback to the tower the night before, Traitor's turret. They say, look, Maya's never going to get banished. Also, it's quite handy because Freddie will be linked to her because she was accusing Freddie being a traitor, and it would be fun to get rid of the two sisters in one day. So that's what's happened. And actually, back at breakfast, Freddie's kind of realizing what's going on. He's like, oh, I'm being framed here. This is not
Mm.
going to go well for me today.
Mm.
Claudia arrives, she congratulates them again. They got a traitor last night, asks them if they're ready for the mission, and leaves them with a little cryptic clue. I imagine it'll rattle a few cages. We spread off then round about the castle. It's time for them to have some discussions, get together. Various people seem to be mentioning Freddy as a possible traitor. Tyler says he's so obviously fake. Poor Freddy.
Yeah, I
Uh,
thought that was a bit hard. Like, and that's something that we've seen, I guess, in this episode a couple of times where, and of course it was pointed out later, where I think some of the conversations to me strayed into outside of strictly game stuff,
yeah,
and we saw that with Kaz, and we'll come to it. But I was just like, that conversation about Freddie really kind of didn't sit right with me because I was like, this is actually too mean spirited almost
mm,
for comfort. Like we're all playing a game and whatever, but like all this so fake stuff, didn't like it. Didn't like it.
yeah. I think there's another example of that I'm going to come to later, so I'll keep that in mind and return
Hmm.
to that point. We've got Livy, Leanne, and Leon. They're this sort of little group. They all agree, yeah, Freddy's suspicious. And then there's this funny moment of Livy in her interview. She says this thing. she's not saying it to the other players, so she's not doing it just to keep up appearances.
Mm.
She says that she thinks Tyler, Leanne, and Leon are 100% faithful. She's like, I'm 100% sure they're faithful. And
Mm.
she's right, like they are faithful, but it it sort of reiterates what I've figured out about Livy so far that I don't think she's an amazing game player. Like I think in this game, you should never be 100% sure of anyone. Like yeah, there's people you're going to feel quite strongly about. They're probably a faithful. But
Yeah.
to be like, I'm ruling them out, never going to question them, they're 100% is really silly way to play.
Especially when we've seen, and they have all seen by now, what happened, say, at the end of series two, and
Yeah.
maybe other versions. But like, we know what can happen and the kind of betrayal that can happen for someone who is 100% sure about someone. So, like, quite foolish. Yeah.
Yeah. Next, we've got Freddie himself. He's in the library. He's feeling pretty terrible. And there's another really weird moment that I can't quite understand, and it's with Francesca. We've not seen all that much of Francesca as a player.
No.
She's not had a lot of screen time, and she's kind of like cornered Freddie, not cornered him, but she's interrogating him a little bit. She's scrutinizing him, and she says, "Can I just ask, why did you put down Armani's name and not Maya's?" As if that was weird that he put Armani's name down.
Mm.
And I thought,
Hmm.
well, like about 10 people wrote Armani's name down, and she was a traitor.
Yeah.
Why are you questioning Freddie as if that was like a strange thing that he did?
Mm.
And the weird thing is, Francesca herself voted for Maya last night, which was really weird. She was the
Okay.
only one that did it. And
Mm.
now they obviously know Maya was a faithful because she got murdered.
Mm.
If anything, I would have thought Francesca would be like, God, I'm an idiot. I can't believe I voted for her and she was a faithful. You were all right. But instead, Francesca's like, why did you vote for the traitor? I just
Yeah.
don't get it. I was really confused.
Do you think it's like a condescending, like almost patronizing thing to like the youngest person there? Like a kind of a undermining or not thinking that much of him and like wanting to like somebody of like lower status to kind of
Mm,
like challenge in that sense. Because and he again like later on the poor guy went through it. But yeah, I don't know about that either.
yeah.
Have you seen the theories about people speculating that maybe they have a like a link like family wise, but I think it's been
Oh,
debunked already. People are like Francesca's his mother, and then people are like, well, no, his mother has been like giving interviews and stuff. So no, but yeah,
yeah. I've not
she
seen that. I've seen speculation that there's another secret relationship in the
yeah,
game. I don't think there is. I'm gonna maybe
yeah, yeah, no,
I don't know why they would put one front and center and then keep another one secret. It's
yeah.
like we've had 4 episodes now. Like I think it probably they would have just let us know at this point. So
Or
I
they
don't
could be
think so.
keeping it for week three,
Maybe.
maybe. Do you think the fact that Francesca hasn't been seen that much could be an indication that she might be in it for the long haul? Like that we don't have to show that much of her because she's there for the duration? Or am I thinking too
Could,
much?
no, could well that often happens. Could well be. We've
Mm,
seen this is not. I'll talk around it. This is not a spoiler. I think we've seen winners of other seasons from different English speaking versions
hmm.
not barely be seen early on in the season, and it takes a while to get some. So yeah,
Okay.
could maybe she is in it for a long time. So we've got space to discover her later.
Yeah, because
Uh,
she's probably like the one of the people who've had the lowest amount of exposure in the show, apart from Anna, who had her moment in this
mm,
episode, leading
yes.
to everyone saying, "Who is this?" on Twitter and stuff. But anyway, yeah.
Yes, and speaking of Anna, she's featured in the kitchen next. She's apologizing to Kaz for voting for him last night. And she says it's because of that cringy, embarrassing toast that he did at breakfast, which a few
Hmm.
people have mentioned.
Hmm.
We've got Kaz talking in his interview saying this, which it's something that seems nice but annoys me as a like cynical, skeptical, analytical person of the game. He
Hmm.
says he wants his daughter to be proud of him for playing honestly, and I'm just like, Kaz, you're lovely,
Or
but
off.
bleh,
Yeah.
like you,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
called the Traitors.
It's
No
the
one cares if you played it
traitors.
honestly.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
People, you're literally celebrated for doing the opposite, like by the general, like, yeah.
yeah,
So no.
yeah. We've got Lisa, Dan, and Alex next. Lisa suspects Anna because of how poor she was. This ends up being really important actually. I'm laughing because it's so silly, but Lisa, so remember Lisa's the lady who's she's like a reverend, but she's not telling everybody.
Hmm.
She thinks Anna's a traitor because of how poor she was at tying up the boat in the challenge yesterday. And it just makes me, I just think it's so funny. Like, I get that, yeah, the mission kind of was a chance for the traitors to sabotage things
Mm.
because they maybe didn't want anyone to be safe. Surely not pretending you can't tie up a boat. Surely that's too obvious. But Lisa's like, no, no, she was like running around and she didn't tie it up properly and something wasn't right there.
Yeah, but you would latch on to things though, wouldn't you? I
I
feel I
guess.
would. And just talk yourself into what this I've spotted something here, and I am gonna be the hero of the
Mm.
oh hero. Are we doing Mariah Carey references this time?
I may have one or two tucked away for later, but
Okay.
if anyone is
Um,
a huge Mariah fan, go back and listen to Kevin's appearance on season two because it is strewn with Mariah Carey lyrics and
yeah,
references throughout.
and everyone else is probably like, what are they talking about? But shout out to someone called Peter, actually, who commented on Spotify and really appreciated the Mariah references. So at least one person really enjoyed it. Anyway, yes. So I can understand why you would kind of see something and then be like, oh, I've spotted it. I've spotted it. Because then it also means that you're going to be like a proper feature of the episode. I would be like latching onto anything
Yeah.
that's going to make me seen and give me a moment. And so to not be like an Anna for the first three episodes, no offense to her, but like has not been that present. And like, I would just hate to get on the show and then for people in episode four to be like, oh, sorry, who's this? Anyway,
Yeah.
I'd be lashing onto anything that I thought could even conceivably be a hint. So I get
Yeah.
it.
You're totally right. I think when there's so little to actually go on, yeah, you would spot whatever you could and think, well, maybe that's something
Run with
that I
it.
don't have anything
Yeah.
else. I think maybe if I was playing the game, I probably wouldn't be so dead set on something. I might,
Mm.
instead of being like, she didn't tie up that boat and she's a traitor, I might be like, like guys, I did notice this one thing. Maybe it's nothing, but just keep it in mind. Like, I might just play it a little bit cooler, that's all, so that I don't
Yeah.
appear like a fool on TV.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's the thing, because when you're speaking with any amount of certainty, you need to be aware that you could be looking like an absolute knob to everyone at home. But then I suppose there's always a chance that you're looking like the Jazz or the whoever who's
well,
really onto things. But so yeah,
yeah.
I get
King
it.
Jazz. Jazz is covering Traitors for, I think, BBC Morning Live,
Saw that.
which is
Love
very
that for
exciting.
him.
Yes, love that.
Yeah.
But also listen to this podcast and not watch that show all the time. Uh,
Yeah.
we've got Dan also saying that he thinks he's suspicious of Anna, but actually has reason I think is even worse. He says that he thinks that Anna just tells him what he wants to hear, and he
Mm.
doesn't believe anything she says. And that's kind of it. And I really like Dan. Like, I think he seems like a really savvy player, really smart, very observant. But I think this is not great reasoning. And he
No.
says it later in the episode too, Anna. He's like, I just feel like you're lying to me. And I
Mm.
don't and
It's
I don't know if
anti-Irish
that's useful.
sentiment, and I won't stand for it. I
Well,
just burped, by the way. I hope nobody heard that burp on the microphone. But yes, that's what I'm putting it down to.
perhaps it is. Maybe we should all lodge a campaign against Dan. I
Oh, I like
actually,
Dan actually. We'll come to him later, but I like him. I
yeah.
know he's been quite divisive. But yeah,
I didn't even know Anna was Irish because she's had such little screen time until I've made a note like somewhere later in this episode where when I suddenly went, oh, she's Irish. Like
really, okay.
had barely heard her speak until this point.
Yeah, I
So yeah,
think I think I clocked maybe a couple of lines or something early on, and I was like, "Oh, cool, an Irish person." But yeah, like there was so much going on, so many people knocking around that yeah, it was hard to kind of focus on someone who like has one line or whatever. Yeah.
yeah. It's time for the mission. We get in the jeeps. We've got a bit of speculation about what the mission's going to be. What did Claudia's little clue at breakfast mean? Dan talks more about Anna and he says she doesn't bring anything of substance to the round table. Leon and Tyler, they're very much still focused on Freddie and Kaz. And it's funny because this little conversation in the Jeep is kind of like a microcosm of how the round table plays out tonight,
Mm,
that it ends up really being all about Anna, Freddie, and Kaz. So we've got it all happening in this little moment.
mm, mm.
So we arrive at a forest and
Sorry, have we skipped the mention of a statutory? I wanted to ask you,
oh,
as a Scottish person, have you heard of a statutory? I liked it.
I don't think I have. I've watched the episode twice. First time I didn't even clock this, and then
Yeah,
today again I did hear Alex saying that his gran or something calls it a statutory because
because
you
it's where
sit
you
out.
seduce. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
if
enjoyed it very much. I just wanted to know, was it a thing?
It's not a thing I've heard, but it did make me chuckle.
Yeah,
And anyone maybe from outside the UK may not understand what sit out means, but I will
true, true,
not
true.
even, I'm going to clarify it. You just have to figure it out.
Figure it out.
In the forest, we've got these three cages suspended from the trees. I'm going to be
Mm,
very smug and say I called it. I've been saying that the three people coming back are going to be part of a mission.
okay.
And here they are. It's the three train evacuees. They're suspended. It's pretty cool. It's quite, big.
Very
It's a big
dramatic.
stunt. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I enjoyed it. And still in the same clothes. I loved that aspect. And I can't wait to see them in whatever other ensembles they have, the two who made it. But I loved the fact that they were just in the same clothes 4 days later. Brilliant.
Yeah. I hadn't even thought of that until now, but yeah, it's a really
Yeah,
funny touch. Like they've
yeah,
been
yeah,
traveling the long road for
yeah.
4 days. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Uh,
when Claudia said their journey has been, unpleasant, I totally believed her, but I guess she was just saying it. I was like, what have they been through? What has happened to these people? Yeah.
these poor people, they've not been fed for 4 days. They're
Yeah.
literally dying.
Yeah.
So all the players are shocked to see them. I mean, obviously some of them had maybe suspicions they were coming back, but yeah, it's like
Mm,
to see this suddenly in the forest is like pretty cool.
mm.
And not only are the players there, but they each have a shield sort of dangling from their hand or their wrist. Um, Here's how the mission's going to work. There are sacks hidden around the forest. There's gold coins in each of them. The players have to run around, grab them, deposit the coins in a sort of contraption in front of these suspended cages. The more coins they put in, the more the cages will be lowered. And whichever two get to the ground first will open and release the people with the shields. And those players, they'll decide who they want to give the shield to. However, Claudia tells them, of course, there aren't enough coins for everyone to be lowered to the ground. They only
Mm.
can have two. They'll have to, someone will not make it. Um, the this is a really silly point, but I'm going to mention it because I'm a petty person.
Yeah.
I was watching this bit, right? And I went, those three platforms aren't level. Like Alexander's one is clearly lower than the other two. I
Okay.
was watching it with my partner, and he was like, "Shut up! It's you're seeing it." And I kept going, "No, look at every shot. Look, they're different. They're different." And I got so annoyed about it, and he was adamant that I was just being an idiot. And he was like, "No, the ground's uneven, and they've just put stairs on some of." I made a poll on Instagram
Hmm.
to check whether or not people agreed with me that the platforms were not actually
Wonky.
level. I gave people three options. Are they level? Are they not level? Does it not actually matter? The consensus at this point is 46% of people say it doesn't matter.
I'm one of them. Because yes, I get it. They probably weren't exactly level, but as we saw over the course of the mission, there are only like 4 steps, or three, was it 3 or 4? So
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. But
it
I get it.
doesn't
I get how you can get annoyed about things. But in my opinion, it doesn't matter.
doesn't matter. I just wanted to win an argument. And I'm very happy to say that only 18% of people have voted for level. So
All right. Okay. Well, that's a victory.
will be throwing that in my partner's face.
Do.
Before the mission actually kicks off, though, the three players suspended have to plead their case. So we've got Alexander. He talks about his background in conflict
Mm.
resolution. He says that he can
Hmm.
work in a team. He's good at figuring things out. Can read people. Fozia says this thing that works really well in her favor. She says, "I was the first one off the train. It was me who volunteered." And
Everyone loved it. People
everyone's like,
could not have
"Yeah, oh
loved
my
it
God."
more.
Saint Fozia, oh my God, like, yeah. Mother
Yeah.
Teresa, we must bring her down.
Yeah.
She says it's your turn to show me love. And of course, and even in episode one, when she gets off or before she gets off the carriage, she says to them all, "Remember this, you all owe me if I make it back."
Really? They should have shown that.
So
Okay. That's cool.
uh
All right.
even at the time I sort of noticed it and thought,
Mm.
what this makes me think they're gonna come back if they showed her say this.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's so funny is she says, like, I was first off the train, I didn't think twice. But in my mind, I was like, yeah, that's terrible. You didn't think. Like, you just got off the train. Like,
Mm.
that was like, that's not a good thing to me that you didn't think twice. You just like did this really impulsive thing. But
But
hey,
she
I guess it pays off.
sacrificed herself for everyone
Yeah, yeah,
else.
whatever. Who cares? Jack is next. He's like, well, I don't work in conflict resolution. I'm just a gardener from Yorkshire. From Yorkshire.
Mm.
He basically focuses on what is kind of probably not the most important thing to the players. He talks about being like really tall and he's fit and he
Yeah.
um goes to the gym or something. And he's trying to say, I'll be really good at the mission. So he goes, I'm a big
And
lad.
sorry, he lives next to the seaside.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, Alexander had such a compelling, proposition in terms of his experience and his nous and his skills. Fozia really had a very like heart-wrenching or like an emotional approach. And this guy's just like, I live near the seaside, or like I'm just like, let's go, lads, like let's get the money, whatever. I was so happy to hear that he really flubbed that because and I don't want to be cruel to him, but out of the three, I wanted him to remain in the cage. Um, Even though I would like him to have his opportunity, I just the other two are the people I wanted to get through, and so I felt quite tense because I just didn't want the other two to be out.
Mm,
So yeah, I was kind of up to 90, as we'd say in this country, watching it. Yeah.
yeah. It's so funny because even I think the players, well, when he says I live by the sea, there's like a smattering of applause. Like they're just sort of like, "Mm, okay, well done." I don't think they really care that much.
Mm,
It's funny you say you. I also wanted him to. I'm sure Jack's lovely, right? But
yeah.
I just found him a little bit annoying.
Mm.
So I kind of didn't want him to be released from the cage either.
Yeah, he's just someone who he seems very sweet and he took it very well. He's just someone that I wouldn't gravitate towards if I was in a group and he was in that group. I would
Yeah,
much sooner gravitate toward to the other two.
yeah,
Yeah, but he took it well. Bless him.
yeah. There's something interesting about what he says in one of his little clips here that I'll come back to. But the mission is basically a montage of lots of running around and finding the coins, and we find out who wants to place the coins in front of which player. Leanne wants to help Fozia because, well, she doesn't actually say why. She just says, "Oh, I met her and Alexander on the platform." But she doesn't actually say why she picks Fozia. I guess it's because she sacrificed herself and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Joel wants to help Jack because he's also from Yorkshire. Great
There you
reason.
go. Good a reason as any.
Um, uh, no, there's this is no, I'll come back to this. I'll come back to this in a moment. Tyler's focusing on Alexander because he thinks Alexander might give him a shield. Don't really know why he thinks that, but that's
Mm-hmm.
what he thinks.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, spoiler, later on, Alexander does kind of consider Tyler, so he's not totally off here.
Yeah, true.
Uh, Kaz then also says this vague statement. He says, "I owe Jack far too much." Uh, I I assume he means he was on the same carriage as him, and Jack got
All
off and
right.
sacrificed himself, but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
never really explained.
Okay.
Various other players give their reasons about who they're picking. Mostly it's about someone on their carriage sacrificing themselves for the team.
Mm. And Alexander, of course, had the fewest fellow carriage
Yeah,
members
which is
remaining, right?
surprising. Yeah.
As somebody who watches a lot of reality TV, I guess, and a lot of competition reality TV, which I'm sure I know you do, and a lot of people listening do. As soon as Alexander says I'm screwed, I was like, I think I can relax here because I think we're gearing up to him getting through. This is at the very
Oh,
beginning. I was like, oh, I feel confident now. He said, oh, I'm screwed, and I was like, okay, he's through.
I
Hopefully,
was the opposite. I totally fell
really.
for it.
Okay.
I was like, oh God, yeah, no one's gonna
Mm,
put coins in, isn't it? So
mm.
I fully suspected Fozia and Jack to win this.
Okay.
So I was actually really surprised by the outcome, even though I
Right.
I know I just said like I thought Jack's reasoning was a bit rubbish, but I
Mm.
still just thought a lot of the guys would be like, yeah, he's one of the lads.
Lads, lads, lads. Yeah.
Lads, lads, lads. Lads in cages. So,
Mm.
uh, as they're coming down bit by bit, Fozia is clearly in the lead, and it's neck and neck between the guys. And yeah, I thought Jack was going to be chosen, and I was wrong.
Okay.
Um, this is the thing that someone else, one or two people have mentioned online, that maybe there was a bit of a mistake in the editing or a bit of a spoiler, because
Mm-hmm.
while the whole mission's going on, we we cut to confessionals, these interview clips of the three talking through what went on in the mission. And there's a clip of Jack in the armchair, and he says this thing. He says, "Oh, um, he was talking about who was putting the coins in front of him, and he went, oh, one guy." He's talking about Joe,
Mm-hmm.
because remember Joe said he's from Yorkshire, so I'm going to go for him. And he says,
Mm.
"Oh, one guy was helping me out. I think he's from Yorkshire. I don't even know the dude's name." And so a few people have spotted, oh, if he
Ah,
doesn't know his name,
okay.
it's probably because he's not now back at the castle.
Yeah,
And so he's
yeah, yeah,
not been
yeah.
able to. So maybe that was a bit of a spoiler that Jack wasn't going to
Yeah.
make it.
Okay.
I
And
have to say, I didn't notice that. Someone else noticed it.
no, no, I didn't. And it was funny talking about the editing. I don't know if you're going to mention this, but like at one point it was really close between them, right? But
Yeah.
they came down to the same level at the same time, and Claudia was like, "Oh, I can't call it." And then we see a lot of coins, And then it turns out that actually Alexander was like 2 steps ahead of him in the end. So like it wasn't actually that close.
Yeah,
But like obviously you're gonna try and make it seem really close and on a knife edge
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah, definitely. By the end, Fozia and Alexander, they're freed. Claudia explains that they won't be allowed to vote tonight and that they can't be banished or murdered tonight. So poor Jack, bye bye, off he goes.
Well,
Um,
he hangs around for a while. The whole time
yes.
where Claudia's talking to everyone and everyone's so excited and whatever, he's just up there hanging in front of the trees. I thought that was funny in a way, but like I was like, how long must that have taken for for him to listen to all the excitement and like the future plans and here's what's happening tonight, and he's just done. Yeah.
Yeah. By the looks of it, he is milking this for all it's worth. He's all over Instagram, as he should
Okay,
be.
good.
So he's getting these funny little videos and things in. So good luck to Jack. What a
Yeah,
shame.
absolutely, absolutely.
Uh, Claudia talks to Alexander and Fozia, um, and she says, well, not to them. She talks to everybody, and she says, they're joining you in the game, but are they joining as a traitor or a faithful?
Mm,
And we get a little flashback to both of them. They receive letters telling them that they're just joining as faithfuls.
mm.
Um, and obviously she has to say this, I guess, because like she can't say to them all, and they're both faithful, because you can't know what everybody is. So she has to at least say, I'm not telling you what they are. They
Yeah.
could be traitors. So in future you may vote to banish them.
Mm,
You know what I mean? The funny thing is, I noticed maybe it's going to be totally insignificant. I've got a bit of a theory about this. When they get their letters saying you're entering the game as a faithful,
hmm.
we see Fozia happy about that, and she goes, "Yeah, that's what I wanted." And at first, I thought, I just think it's boring that people want to be faithful.
Okay.
Like I would just want to be. I think being a traitor is the best way of winning, and it's the most exciting thing to do. And I can't understand wanting to play the traitors, but desperately not wanting to be a traitor.
I can see myself wanting to be a faithful because I just feel like there's less immediate stress on me at every point of the day where I can
Mm,
actually just relax a little bit more than if you're like lying the whole time.
yeah.
So I can kind of understand that. And she seems like a very noble person, very honest, very principled. So I don't know. I can see why she would say that, but I don't know what it means for her potential seduction. But anyway, we'll come on
Mm.
to that. Yeah.
What I understand that point, and a lot of people say, I couldn't play as a traitor because I couldn't take the constant pressure of having to lie and to
Mm,
remember so much and remember what I've told
mm,
different people. On the other hand, I still think being a faithful is pretty stressful because
hmm.
every single night you may be murdered and it's kind of totally out of your hands. So
Yeah, but at
I
least you're
think
just being honest all the time. I
you are,
Lying
but then
stresses
that's
me out so
bad.
much.
I think it's bad. I think even as a faithful, you have to do a little bit of faking it.
Okay.
If you are really honest and everybody trusts you and thinks you're great, I think that's bad. I think
Okay,
the
that's gonna
traitors aren't going to keep you
raise
around if you're just
suspicion.
a nice guy.
Right, okay, yeah.
So I actually think if you want to play as a great faithful, having a little bit of heat on you is a
Be
good thing, and
sketchy.
you have to figure out a way
Yeah.
to do that. So
Okay.
anyway.
Okay. Fair.
Um, we shall see. Of course,
Mm.
maybe we can experience this for ourselves because the Traitors Live experience is coming to London at some point soon.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to be taking part, and you get to play the game sort of for real. Obviously, a shortened version of it. You don't go away for like 3 weeks.
You should be invited to the launch
Should
and be the
be.
first person to play it.
I should write to their PR team and say,
Yes.
I think
Actually, like
you need to
actual.
invite me.
Because
And
you could then like obviously mention it on the podcast that you already have, but like do a bigger feature on it. We need to get you in there.
okay,
Star guest. Yeah.
let's do a letter writing campaign or something slightly more contemporary.
But
Um,
you select like X number of prominent guests. Oh, maybe me, but like guests or listeners to experience this thing all for free, and we get to meet our favorite traders afterwards. And it's going to be amazing. Let's manifest it.
and they fly everyone over to London and pay for your accommodation for at least 3 nights, I
They'll do
think.
it. They'll do it.
So,
This is a high
right.
profile podcast.
As soon as we finish recording, I'm finding an email address to write to.
100%.
So the mission's done. We're back in the jeeps. We're heading back to the castle. Alexander and Fozie are having a chat with everyone. You know, it's really confusing because there's a player called Alex and there's a player called Alexander.
Hmm.
I can't
Hmm.
shorten Alexander's name. I did that in episode one by accident and then realized later I shouldn't have.
Oh, because there's Alex, yeah.
They're having a chat with everyone, you know, getting introduced properly. Kaz is worried that the traitors might recruit soon because they're one down. A little bit of foreshadowing, perhaps.
Hmm.
Back at the castle, then. We're in the kitchen. We've got Linda talking to Fozia about how stressful playing the game is.
Mm.
And Linda wants to actually, I think, you know what? We've criticized Linda a bit. She's
Hmm.
doing a smart thing. She wants to get close to these two new people. It's good to get people inside. So she's going out
Yes.
of her way to talk to Fozia, and then she does the same with Alexander. She's with Charlotte, and they're getting to know him, and they're having a little chat in the corridor. He's talking about, yeah, again, how worried he was in the mission because four people from his original train carriage aren't in the game anymore.
Mm.
And that must have included the sisters because then Linda and Charlotte explain, oh, well, here's why they're not here.
Mm.
One of them just got
And
banished, one of them was murdered.
and he only said three names, and then they were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." I feel bad for whoever that fourth person was. Didn't even get a mention. But yeah.
What a shame. Next up, we are in the billiards room. I just call it the billiards room because it's got. I've said this on the podcast before. I don't know if it's a snooker table, a pool table, a billiards table, but it makes me think of Cluedo, and in Cluedo, there's a billiards room.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We've got Freddie, Joe, Tyler. Freddie's again, he's still trying to defend himself because he knows that people are suspicious of him. And he's basically saying the same as he said earlier. I think I've been framed. It would be so obvious for me as a traitor to murder Maya. Can't you all see what's happening?
Hmm.
Dan then appears, and he tells Freddie, "Yeah, I'm a little bit suspicious of you." And then Joe does the same thing that Francesca did earlier that I found confusing. He asks Freddie,
Mm.
"Why did you vote for Armani?" Um, and Freddie's like, "Well, I knew that it was going to be either me or..." He was like, "Oh, I was kind of suspicious of her, but then also knew either I was going to get banished or it was her, so I just voted
Mm.
for her to save myself." And there's this really funny little moment here because Dan goes, "Yeah, like that makes sense. I'd do the same thing."
Mm.
And Joe goes, "Well, I'm not judging." And Dan says, "I'm not saying you are." And then like has this excellent eye roll. And I just love these two queens going at each
I
other.
know, I
It's
know.
perfect.
I was gonna say. Yeah, the eye roll, brilliant. I've definitely been in those kinds of conversations and had those kinds of interactions with people. So that felt very tangible and real to me, and I loved it. And yeah, I'm very much Team Dan in general, actually. And I don't really dislike Joe. I know he's quite unpopular online and stuff, but the eye roll was a key moment of this of the series for sure.
Yeah, very enjoyable. I'm
Yeah.
sure there will be lots of clips of that all over TikTok and Instagram.
Mm. Yeah,
Uh,
defo.
we actually get a little clip of Dan next in a confessional, an interview. He says he wants to get numbers against Anna for tonight. And while the guys are talking about all this, there's some eavesdropping going on. So Anna, Leanne, Livy are crowding around the door. I don't think
Mm.
they hear anything incredibly salacious, but they hear Anna's name being mentioned. I think that's all they really gleaned from this.
Yeah.
So maybe Anna realizes, like, uh-oh. And actually, this is where I made my note. This is the first time in the episode, or the whole series, I noticed that Anna was Irish.
Oh yeah,
That's
okay.
how little airtime she's had.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So here
yeah.
we are.
Yeah.
We've got Kaz talking about being isolated. He reckons that around the castle, people aren't really coming and speaking to him about their theories, so he knows he's in
Yeah.
trouble. And I think this is probably the sort of last thing before the round table begins. Is Mina, and you said earlier you think she's doing an amazing job as a traitor. She notices that Livy, Leanne, Tyler, and Leon are this real close alliance, and we've seen those four players spending a lot of time together. Um, she knows that this is bad. She's like, I don't want alliances in the game. She says the only alliance she wants is the sisterhood.
Sisterhood, yeah.
And that's smart, I think. You don't want whole groups of people who are really aligned to each other and are going to have each other's
Mm.
backs. So she has her eye on splitting this up. What I did notice here, by the way, is I thought Jake was also part of this group. Like him and Tyler have got this sort of romance going on, but Jake is almost nowhere to be seen in this episode. Really
True, true,
weird.
true, true. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
defo.
I think he had a little tiny interview clip earlier, but other than that, I sort of like forgot about him
Do you not make a list of all the confessionals everyone has in each episode?
and tot them up like on a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Uh, there will probably be other people out there doing that.
I bet there
I
are. I bet there are.
do
But
not
yeah,
have
no,
time.
Jake was the Anna episode 1 to 3 of this episode for sure. Yeah. Not really
Yes.
present. Yeah.
It's time for the roundtable then. Of course, we always go in with some little voiceovers and interviews. We've got Kaz saying he wants to stay cool tonight. If he's questioned, he's going to try and give really direct answers, which maybe doesn't pan out that well. Freddie says he knows he's going to have to be defensive, he's going to have to
Mm.
deflect, he knows he's in trouble. And Anna as well says she knows her name is probably going to come up. And she says it's really annoying because she hasn't done anything untrustworthy except be unable to tie a rope.
Mm-hmm.
So, Claudia arrives. She tells them about the prize, as always. They earned £6,500 today at the mission. The total prize pot at this point is £24,500. She reminds them about Fosia and Alexander, and that before the night is over, post banishment, they will have the chance to hand out their shields. I did, I know the answer, but I did sort of immediately wonder, even in the mission, when Claudia explained this, if they could just keep them for themselves. Like, do they have?
Oh,
Although, wait, I've just realized the obvious answer to that question. They
they're
can't be murdered tonight,
ineligible.
so there's no
Yeah.
point. Okay, I take
Yeah.
it all
Yeah.
back. Maybe they could keep them for like another day.
The next day.
Uh,
Yeah.
so the discussions round the round table. Here we go. Dan is first. He goes straight to Anna, says this thing again. He doesn't feel like she's telling the truth when she speaks. And I like Dan, but I don't really like this comment. I just think it's so difficult to back that up. Or
Okay.
how do you prove anyone else to agree with your feeling that's based on nothing? Like, I feel like she's not telling the truth. Can you all just vote with me, please? I don't think that would convince me if I was around that table.
No, 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 no. But I suppose if you sense a little bit of insincerity in someone, and that could just be somebody doesn't like you that much, or somebody, it could be for any number of reasons. I suppose you'd kind of jump on it. But yeah, it's not going to convince anybody. You need something a bit more substantial than I feel like you're not being honest or whatever. Like you
Yeah,
need more than that to for it to kind of catch on.
yeah. And also perhaps he hates Irish people, like you said.
Yeah.
I'm kidding, that was a joke. Uh, Anna says, well, I couldn't be a traitor. I didn't want to be a traitor. I think she means like, well, when they interviewed me, why would they have picked me? Because I said I wanted to be a faithful.
Mm.
Lisa asks her then about the mission yesterday, and she's saying, I noticed you took so long to tie up the boat and you were going back and forth, and there's a bit of question and all about that. And it just ends with Anna, like, she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't doing that. I didn't mean it. And then she goes, look, I'm sorry, I'm not a sailor.
There you go.
It's just a funny line, made me laugh.
Yeah. I was going to
Um,
put that in my bio in the introduction. I forgot, and he's sorry he's not a sailor.
you should have. I'll edit in and post. Maybe that'll be the title of the episode. Sorry, I'm not a sailor.
Yeah.
Uh, Mina comes in. She comes back. She brings things back to Kaz, which I think is probably smart. Like, he's had heat on him already. Just do the obvious thing. It's not going to stand out that much if you come for Kaz. No one's going to go, why is she doing that? Like, it's
Mm.
it's a good way of blending in without just saying nothing.
Yeah, still being
So,
active in the discussion, but like,
yeah,
yeah. Mm.
she brings up the fact that Armani would always defend him. Um, And so she's like making the connection. Well, if she always defended you, is that just because you're a traitor and she was trying to stick with a fellow traitor?
Mm.
Jake comes into, asks why, Kaz, why did you vote for Freddie last night? Francesca piles into, they're all coming for Kaz here, actually.
Mm.
I found it I know it's the game, but a bit uncomfortable. Like so
Yeah.
many of them just piling on. Francesca's saying, you go back and forth a lot. You don't really commit to naming any suspects.
Mm.
And Kaz is just, he kind of rambles. He talks about how he's been overthinking things. He just can't think clearly. He doesn't even know what's going on. It's it's pretty clear he's quite deflated and he's given up. And Fozia even steps in and she's like, you seem like you've given up. Like, come
Mm.
on, this is your chance. And he's like, look, this is the fourth round table. Happens every time. I
Yeah,
kind
just
of
worn
kind of have
down
given
by
in.
it. Yeah.
Uh, which I get. It must be really tough at this point to like, what have you not said already that's going to
Yeah.
convince people? It's tough. In fact, it keeps going. Leon comes at him too. He says, "You'd make the perfect foil to Armani." And
Mm.
again, I've kind of said this already, but I understand why that's so frustrating to hear. Like, if someone's saying just your nature, your demeanor would make you a great traitor to Armani who was so loud and outspoken.
Mm.
Like, what's Kaz supposed to say to that? Like, I'm sorry for being quiet and nice. Um,
Yeah, like if someone is going into the show and could be described as friendly and intelligent, like you're in trouble.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We've got things sort of swivel a little bit towards Freddie here. Livy brings up the fact that, Maya had accused you of being a traitor. And she says, look, it was just you two on that pontoon in the mission yesterday together. So we don't really know what went down, but Maya was pretty sure that suddenly she thought you were a traitor. There must be something in that. Um, and Dan uh, comes in with what I think he'd mentioned earlier. He says, well, but then why would Freddy so obviously kill Maya? Isn't that
Mm.
like too simple? And Livy's saying, well, but yeah, then it's like a double bluff. It's the
Yeah.
perfect way out for him. And
Yeah, yeah.
um, Freddie, again, he defends himself. He says, well, I voted for Armani. And Livy, I think, sort of says, well, that doesn't mean anything. You could just be a traitor who turned on a fellow traitor.
Mm.
Little do they know that it's another traitor around the table who did that. It's time for the
Oh, and
votes.
going back
Oh,
a little bit,
yeah,
I just
yeah.
want to give Fozia a shout out for pointing out or for saying to everybody that how you're treating Kaz isn't very nice. Like,
Yeah,
because for me, like going into a group of new people, my instinct would just to be liked by them and to like not be an adversary to them. And I thought the fact that she like heard what Kaz was saying, said to everybody, that's not nice, guys. I had a lot of respect for that. So yeah, love
yeah.
that from her.
Yeah, she says like it seems like it's getting really personal here. Is that how we're
Mm-hmm.
playing this?
Yeah,
Um,
good on her.
you've just reminded me that I, this is I'm jumping ahead a little bit because of the outcome of the banishment, but well, no,
Mm,
I'll come back to it. Someone made a really interesting comment on YouTube about this, but I'll come back to that in a little moment.
mm,
The votes come in, and we start with Leanne. She says she's voting for Freddie because of the whole Maya connection.
mm,
What baffles me is why they're all focusing on Maya was murdered, therefore Freddie's the obvious one that did it.
mm-hmm.
I think it's mind-blowing that they all can't see the other incredibly obvious reason for Maya's murder, which is, I think, what I said at the start of the episode. Maya was so clearly a faithful. It was so obvious to everyone that she
Mm-hmm.
was a faithful that I think whoever the traitors were, whether it's Freddie or anyone, that's who they would have gone for to get rid of. So
Yeah,
I don't think that's the obvious connection to Freddie. I just think Maya was clearly going to be murdered.
yeah.
But no one's in the edit has mentioned it.
Mm-hmm.
Leon's next. He votes for Kaz. Dan and Linda both vote for Anna. Livy votes for Freddie. Tyler goes for Kaz. It's all a bit mixed up. Frankie next goes for Freddie. At this point, Freddie's really upset by it. He's in tears.
He's thinking I don't want to cry, but
Joe goes for Kaz. Lisa votes for Anna. Freddie votes for Kaz. Alex votes for Anna. So at this point, you don't know where it's going. Like it's so split. And the funny thing is, of course, none of these three are traitors. The actual traitors are totally escaping any suspicion or
oh,
at least
true.
any
Actually, they got
votes.
no votes at all.
No votes for a real traitor tonight.
Yeah, that's good going.
Next three, Charlotte votes for Anna. In fact, it's one each of the three. Charlotte goes for Anna, Kaz votes for Freddie, Jake votes for Kaz. So it's so close. Anna has 5 votes at this point. Kaz has 5, Freddie has 4. It's utterly neck and neck. It's a kind of actually if I get sort of a bit metaphorical about it, or poetic, it's a nice mirroring of the mission. Like the three players coming down, who's it
Mm,
going to be? It's
true,
all
true,
the way to the
true.
end. It's close.
Yeah.
Um,
How do
however,
you think the crying comes across at the round table? I've seen it go down really poorly,
yeah,
but Freddie was obviously really upset. And
yeah,
do you think people will think he's less or more likely to be a traitor with that performance, which it wasn't? But you know what I mean? Do you think
yeah.
people will be more suspicious because he cried so much?
I I think if I was playing the game, this is pure speculation. I think, and I've said this before, like when Ellen was banished in episode 2, when someone gets that upset,
Hmm,
I feel like it's a sign that they probably are faithful. Like
I think
I
so.
don't know if someone playing a traitor could cry that effectively and that believably.
Yeah.
So I think I would go, oh shit, they're not faking this. They're really upset that we're coming for them.
I think so too. I think like because the emotion of being a traitor who's about to get found out has to be, oh, you got me. Like that's probably as upsetting as it gets, as opposed to what was clearly happening with him,
Yeah.
having a typical emotional upset where I reckon, yeah.
But I don't know if these players are going to care that much about it. Like we already heard Tyler episode earlier saying, "Oh, he's so fake. It's so obvious he's fake." So
Yeah, true, true, true,
maybe
true.
they'll be, pretty cold about it all.
Yeah.
Um, and in fact, the final two votes that come in are both for Cass, and that's from Anna and Mina. Of course, Mina, I'm now contradicting what I just said. She is crying amazingly as a
Hmm.
traitor. Like she's done it before. Like I mean, she's not
Right.
sobbing hysterically, but
Mm.
she manages to channel her feelings of guilt into something else.
Yeah.
So Kaz is banished. Yeah, there's various shots of people getting upset. Livy, Mina, Freddie, they're all crying.
Hmm.
And Kaz does a great goodbye speech, I think, actually. And it's really
One of the
nice because
best
yeah,
I've seen. Yeah.
it's nice because he was so defeated at the table. But I think here he's like, well, I'm just going to take my moment now and I'm going to be a bit theatrical. And it's great.
Yeah. It just seems like all the shackles of everything that he's been experiencing just come off, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Do you know what? I'm gonna have fun with this moment." And yeah, I loved it.
And
But
he's
it
probably
did make go on.
I was just going to say he's probably just a bit annoyed as well that he's like, well, screw the lot of you.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
going to
yeah.
like just totally mess with you.
It did make me think how exciting that moment would be being a viewer who doesn't know who the traders are. Like I was thinking like
Mm,
this would be so good if you didn't know. But
yeah,
it's still great regardless, yeah.
yeah. I'm going on a bit of a tangent here, but um, I do wonder, a lot of people online often ask, why don't they do a series where you don't know who the traitors are? And I think they'll
Hmm.
never do that. Like that's a fundamental part of this show is the audience knowing who they are. I really don't think they'll ever change that. I don't want them to. I do wonder if they'll do something like go 2 episodes without revealing it. Like maybe they'll do a episode
Okay.
one, Claudia picks, and we don't know for at least an episode, and then the episode two
Right.
reveal is who did she go? Just to give us a little bit of time to not know, something
You
like that.
wouldn't want a series where you're also wondering or speculating.
No, I don't. I wouldn't. I think so
Hmm.
much of the fun is watching how good or bad the traitors are at doing their job. I think if there
Okay.
was a series where you never knew until the very end, or until people were banished, and maybe this is a good thing actually for TV ratings, I would feel like I needed to go back and watch the whole thing again to see it from
Hmm.
a different perspective.
Well, I think somebody who maybe works in like development and television formats should just come up with a different kind of show, which is like that, but you don't know who the baddies are, because I
Yeah.
would love to see
Uh,
something like that. But
Well,
yeah.
I think the mole on Netflix does that. You
Yeah,
don't know
true.
who the
True, true,
mole
true.
is.
True.
So
Fair.
I guess it exists in some way.
Hmm.
But maybe
Hmm.
there's a chance to play with that
Expand
in
upon
a
that. Yeah, I
different
think so.
format.
I think so.
So Kaz does his speech. He says, "It's been fantastic. You're all fantastic. I know it was just a game." And then he does this brilliant thing. He says, "Joe, who'd have thought you'd caught me just because of a twinkle in the eye?" And of course, Joe's like, "Oh my God, I did it! I did it!" They're all like
Yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah.
like about to lose their minds because they think
Like,
they've got a traitor again.
yeah.
And he builds it up at the first round table. I was selected to be and then it just like super quick goes faithful, turns round,
And he's
leaves
gone.
immediately.
Yeah.
It's I would have done that too. I'd have been so annoyed. I'd be like, I'm gonna mess
Yeah.
with you right before I go.
Yeah,
I hate
yeah,
you all.
yeah. The wording, like I was selected, that's very, very misleading, but I
Yeah.
appreciate
But they were right. He was smart. Haha. Um,
it.
Livy is like, I knew it. And I think Dan is going, yeah, I defended him. I told you all. I told you he wasn't. And we've got a little bit of Mina in her interview. She's saying, well, on a personal level, yeah, I do feel really bad. As a traitor, this was great.
Mm,
Claudia does her. It's so funny that she's a presenter. Like she's not actually an actress. Like a lot of the hosts, and I guess like Siobhan McSweeney, like who's going to be doing the Irish one,
mm,
is an actress. But Claudia is so good at like pretending she's annoyed with them. She says, "Faithfuls, what are
mm,
you doing? The
mhm,
traitors, they're laughing. Sleep well if you can." It's like
mhm.
so shady. It's brilliant. And off she walks. Love
Yeah.
it. Dan's livid. Livy. again, I think reveals that she's maybe not quite cut out for this game. She's like having a meltdown and she's like, we've just got rid of another faithful. Like, oh, what have we
Yeah,
done?
and she goes, I need to get out of here. And I'm like, it's over, love. You're all leaving anyway. Like, what else are you gonna do? Yeah.
It's funny, I was talking about people at work today, and I work in TV, so it's all, people who work in TV with me, and we were talking about the show and about the casting,
Mm,
and one of my colleagues was saying, God, there's always people who really, really do get upset, and
mm.
some people just can't appreciate it as a game, and they just get so emotionally involved. But I think it's so deliberate on the part of casting. Like they don't want to just cast really like cold, like game
Yeah.
players who are going to be like really straight. Like they're going to just keep casting people who are a bit naive about it all, and that like
Mm.
they want us to see people getting upset and emotional on TV. So they're going to keep casting Livies, and
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about that. Like it's great TV.
Yeah, yeah, but people who are very expressive with their emotions and will tend to have those kinds of moments. Of course, that's great for TV. Like you can't have people just sitting around going, "Oh, no way. Oh, cool. All right, well, let's go." Yeah,
There's a final little argument between Dan and Joe at the round table, which I'm absolutely here for.
I love this
Uh,
feud.
it's I,
Ryan
I've
Murphy, next series. Yeah.
uh, Joe implies he's like, "Oh, yeah, I got it wrong, sorry." And then he's
Hmm.
like, "Well, I don't feel that bad because like he toyed with us right at the end, so like he kind of implies like, well, I was a bit annoyed that he did
Yeah.
that."
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, if, 0.5 seconds later to Dan, "Why are you taking everything so personally?" I'm like, "You just said you were annoyed." Like,
Yeah.
it's I love these two coming at each other.
Yeah.
In fact, even after they leave the round table and we head off to other areas of the castle, Joe's still bitching about Dan, which is fun.
Yeah.
And we've got Freddie's, he's really upset. Linda's hugging him on the way out. It's so funny. She's like hugging him and she goes, "Have a drink." Like it's just the funniest little line from her. Like, "Have a drink, you'll be fine." Um,
Yeah, and Joe is still in his frame of mind of being annoyed or whatever. And when Freddie comes in, like in tears, he's like, "You all right, Freddie? Like, is there a clue to how he might be feeling? Clearly, no."
yeah. There's also like this weird. Maybe it's not weird. Maybe I'm being silly. We've got Francesca, and she's really like hugging him and looking after him.
Mm.
And there's a voiceover of Freddie saying Frankie's like a mum to me in here.
Hmm.
Like she voted for you. She was like
Yeah,
interrogating you. She voted for
it's a
you.
toxic relationship with a mother. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I get like you can separate gameplay. You can vote for someone and then be nice to them, but it's
Yeah,
just so
as
sort of
Dan was saying
sudden.
to
It's so
Anna, right?
abrupt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, We've got Anna. She takes Dan aside to have a chat with him,
Mm.
and Dan still just talks about having this like gut feeling. He says, "There's something I just can't get over it." Again, I just think gut feeling to me is not ever great for gameplay. Like, I just think it's all BS. Gut feelings can
Okay.
be completely wrong.
Mm.
Like, I mean, I don't know. Ask someone with like anxiety, like, what are your gut feel? They'll tell you like terrible things are going to happen, and they're not. Like, so.
But aren't we also told to trust your instincts? You know, if you're in a situation that you think might be unsafe, or as you go through life, that actually your instincts are like you should trust them. Is that not how you go through your
We
life?
To an extent, I just think your instincts could be completely wrong sometimes. I just
Yeah.
think it's all chance. And sometimes you're right, and sometimes you can completely screw things up and be convinced of things that aren't true.
Oh yeah, and
So I don't
especially
think it's a
in
great way to play a game like this. That's
no,
all.
it's not. But especially when you have very little distraction, things can really be, blown out of proportion in your head. And yeah, yeah, yeah. So and when you have so little to go on as well. So I can see how it might happen, but
Yeah.
yeah, you probably shouldn't double down on it so much. Yeah.
Yeah. I do think Dan is probably in the game for the long run because he
I
gets
hope
even more
so.
screen time here. He talks
Mm.
again about his autistic diagnosis and he's sort of explaining, actually, I'm really good at separating logic and emotion.
Yeah.
And he says, I know that it might come across as lacking empathy. That's not what's going on here. I'm just very
Yeah.
logical.
Yeah.
I just thought this is a couple of times we've seen him talking about this now in different episodes. I suspect he's around for a while. Anyway.
I hope so. I really like him. I think when he's speaking to the camera I'll do this bit into the camera. When he's speaking into the camera in the confessionals, he's just so likable, articulate. I really am on his side when he's talking in the confessionals. I really like him, and I think that obviously it's not a skill; it's like part of what his it's not a condition, but how his brain is that he can like to be able to separate the emotional
Mm.
stuff from the logical stuff and still like Anna and be like, oh, we'll be friends, but I might vote for you 10 times
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a real plus, like a real boon to him, I think.
Yes.
Mm.
Something happens here that I think may end up being significant in the next episode or two because we've got Livy and Leanne who are friends with Tyler and they're in this sort of alliance with him, but
Mm.
they're quite annoyed with him because he said all day he was going to vote for Freddie and then he didn't. He changed his mind. He went for Kaz instead. Of course, Kaz with the faithful. And Leanne even says in her confessional, there's something really suspicious about him. I'm struggling with it. So I
Yeah.
thought, oh, are they going to turn in Tyler soon? Like, is this going
Are
to be
we
a
setting up
problem?
something here? Yeah.
Meanwhile, Tyler's kind of blaming things on Leon. He's like, oh, but Leon was too convincing. It's his fault that it changed. And Dan says to him, well, this doesn't look good for you. You're going back and forth. It's confusing people.
Yeah.
Uh,
For someone to be so gung ho all day about what they're going to do, and then when it comes to the round table, they do something else, that would be like, that would cut my trust in them in half. Like,
yeah,
basically, it'd be like, no, 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 what's happening here?
yeah, I think
Regardless
so.
of how, close I was to them or thought I was.
Mhm.
Mm.
Before they all head off to their lodgings, of course, we've got the shields to take care of. So
Yeah.
Alexander and Fozia have to decide who they want to award them to. Um, Alexander's talking to Dan and he says, look, it's probably between you, Tyler, and Mina. And then Dan does this other really clever thing. And he says,
Hmm.
well, what might work is if you don't tell people exactly who you're going to give it to, tell them it's between us three because you're effectively going to keep all three of us safe.
Oh, he's the one who
Um,
suggested it.
yeah, Dan suggests
Okay.
it to Alexander. I'm pretty
Mm.
sure. And
Hmm.
then Alexander's like, "Oh yeah, 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 that I can see."
Mm.
This is Dan's obviously watched the show. He gets it because this is what the players did a lot in the first series when they had the armory and people went in one by one to find a shield,
Yeah. Yeah.
and all the players figured out early on, why don't we just not tell anyone who found it, and then we'll
Mm.
all kind of be safe because the traitors won't know which one of us to avoid.
Yeah.
So it seems like Alexander's taking this on board. That's exactly what he's going to do. On the other hand, we get Fozia talking to Leanne, and she whispers, "I'm going to give you the shield. You got the most coins for me. You helped me stay in the game."
Mm. Mm.
The clock's chiming. They're all heading off to bed for the night. So we don't know. Has Alexander dished out his shield? Who's he giving it to? Are they going to keep it a secret to us? Are we going to find out? Like we don't really know, which is exciting in this moment. We find out really soon after, but it's exciting in this moment.
Hmm.
We head off to Traitor's Tower, and I'm wondering, like, are they going to be able to recruit yet? Like, is that what's coming?
Mm.
Mina then she comes in and she reveals straight away that she has the shield from
Mm.
Alexander. I like literally, I don't know why I literally gasped. I was so like, like amazed in this moment. I thought it was like just because I didn't think Alexander was going to give it to her. I thought he was probably
Yeah.
just going to give it to Dan.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh,
But
like,
the fact
oh,
that we hadn't
brilliant.
seen it yet, I guess. Well, I wasn't thinking along those lines at all, but yeah.
And just the fun, the excitement that oh he's just giving it to a traitor, like oh man,
Mm.
like that's great because he obviously just doesn't suspect her at all if he's been willing to
Mm.
do that.
Yeah.
Of course, Mina and Linda don't know about Leanne. They don't know who Fozia gave hers to, which
Mm.
is a kind of maybe a problem. While they're talking, there's a knock on the door, so we probably know what's going to happen now.
Mm.
Claudia comes in and she says, "Evening, my traitors. Look at you two." Mina says they're thriving and surviving. And then Claudia does a nice little callback to series one. She says, someone needs to get you, I think she says, someone needs to get you cocktails, which is like a
Mm.
joke that she made before, way back in the first series in Traitors Tower. And it made me laugh at that.
Mm.
And she says, I have some rather exciting news. With Hermione banished, I'm now offering you a choice. You are now two traitors. And as per the rules of the game, you can choose to recruit. Which made me laugh a little bit because I thought, well, you didn't let them recruit last night. It's not really the rules of the game. You kind
Oh
of just
yeah.
make up the rules a little bit as you go along.
Yeah.
Um, so if they choose seduction or recruitment, they'll be joined tonight. They'll find out if the person accepts. Of course, the person
Mm,
might not accept, they might refuse. So Mina and Linda debate what they're going to do. Mina says she was looking forward to the murder, but now she's not so sure. Like they don't know who's got the other shield, so maybe murder's a bit risky.
mm,
And they go ahead and decide that they probably will just recruit. They talk about their options. They start with Fozia and they say, well, she's quite a vocal person, and the fact that she's just arrived in the game, probably people are going to question what her status is. That could be really good for us.
mm.
Like if we maybe then want to turn against her and banish her soon. I think that's the implication.
Yeah, it didn't
They,
seem like they were looking to recruit someone who, could be really effective as a trader and who could help them get
yeah,
further. It seemed to be like who can be cannon fodder for us or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? Fair enough.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Be like that. They talk about Freddie, and again, yeah, they're like, well, lots of people are suspicious of him anyway. And
Mm,
at least if we offer him to be a traitor, he might think that we could help him out. So he might accept it for that reason because he's going to have us to back him up. Well, he'll think that we're going to turn people off the scent. Maybe that's not what they're going to do.
mm.
And they discuss Anna for the same reason. She got a lot of votes tonight at round table. But they're worried that again Anna, like Freddie, might not accept this offer. They make the decision. They write down the name. Claudia takes the letter, and I looked at the clock, like the literal, not in the show, the time, and it was like 2 minutes to 10. So I
Mm.
knew that a cliffhanger is on the way. It is a cliffhanger. We don't find out who they've offered it to, and the episode ends right here.
I thought maybe we'd see who the person is, but we wouldn't find out their decision. I was
Mm.
hoping for that, but
Yeah.
no.
I thought that could happen too. And then
Mm.
again, I was like, no, there's like a minute left. We're not
Mm.
even going to get to see that.
Yeah.
So, let's start with our predictions then. Who do you think's going to get offered this recruitment, and do you think they'll accept?
I
Uh,
think Fozia and no.
okay. I think I've got the exact same thing.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Why do
Hmm.
you think it's her, and why do you think she'll say no?
I think it's her because of just the uncertainty around the newcomer. And she's somebody who is very vocal, who can kind of take a bit of attention and who people could kind of focus in on potentially. Um, and would basically just to keep Mina safe for another while,
Yeah.
to keep focus off Mina. Although by that logic, you could Freddie and Anna are both next in the firing line, but I just have a sense that it might be Fausia, because of the uncertainty around the newness and like, oh, would the producers, tell one of these to be a traitor and all that. And I
Yeah.
think no, simply because we saw her saying I want to be faithful. I
Yeah.
think that was maybe storytelling wise setting up a refusal.
Yeah.
And because I think, as I said before, she just seems to be a very, noble, principled person. But like she could surprise us and have this side to her that is like roll the sleeves up and get into it. It's possible. But yeah, that's what I think may happen.
Yeah.
But looking forward to finding out.
I'm with you on that. To add to that, maybe Mina and Linda, they like this idea of the sisterhood, so maybe that's makes them more likely to pick a woman.
Yeah, true.
And if we're being, well, if I don't think Linda would think this far ahead, but if Mina was being incredibly calculated,
Hmm.
it might be really helpful for them to just keep recruiting women because if the other players banish successfully, they keep banishing women, they're more likely to think that any remaining traitors are men.
Oh, if
So
they catch another female trader.
yeah, I think most of the
Yeah,
players will be like, oh well, we've got two or three women
there
now.
has to be a man.
Like if
Yeah, yeah,
Linda
yeah,
goes as
yeah.
well, they'll be like, right, there's been three female traitors. It's got to be a guy now. And Mina could sit back and go, haha,
Could be
they're not
females
looking
all
at
the
me.
way. Yeah, 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 yeah.
So maybe Mina is planning that in the back of her mind. I don't know. It's a lot of
Yeah,
speculation. But
no,
yeah, I
makes sense.
think I would guess Posia, and I also think she'll say no, which is really going to throw a spanner in the works. Or
Yeah.
we've seen it in other versions, I'm sure, that players who said they were faithful to the end and all that, as soon as they get offered recruitment, they're like, go on then.
Okay. So
So
in the event that Fauzi, say whoever is attempted to be seduced says no, does that mean they just ask someone else then, like at the next round, probably.
They
Like, does it have to be like
probably,
free-ish?
I think they'll get the option every night
Okay, yeah,
going forward. Yeah, it'll next week they'll have the same option again.
yeah, yeah.
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure.
Hmm.
What about next banishment? Who do you think is getting banished at next round table?
Well, unless there's, I would like to see someone like Tyler in the being in the frame. But I think most likely we're looking at the people who've just been spoken about already, like Freddie, Anna, probably. So let's just say Anna.
Yeah, I've also gone with Anna.
Oh, no way.
I wondered if it could be Freddie, but like you mentioned a little bit earlier, maybe because he got so upset, it just
Hmm.
might either convince people that maybe we were wrong and he's a faithful, or at least might make people back off him for the time being and come back to him
Yeah.
later. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. At least like one round, give him one round off. I think
yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
So I'm going with Anna as well.
Yeah, okay.
Uh,
We shall see.
we shall see. We've got a couple of voice messages sent into the
Oh yeah.
board. Hooray! We first of all have a question from George. That is not a real name; it's a nickname. George. Let's listen to that.
Okay.
Hi Matthew, I've got a question about sleep in the game. So, the way it's shown to the viewers, it looks like the players have to stay up until midnight and then they get in their cars and they go to where they're sleeping. And then, well, the traitors have to come back, do their murdering, and then go to wherever they're sleeping. And then everyone comes back early in the morning for breakfast. Do you think that Studio Lambert is using the lack of sleep as an active tool to heighten everyone's emotions, or do you think it's just editing and everyone's getting a full night's sleep?
So George is asking about sleep. Are Studio Lambert, are the game makers deliberately using sleep as a tool to mess with the players and make things more tense? I have an answer to this that I'm pretty confident about. Do you have any guesses about this, Kevin?
I would say I would guess that the what needs to be achieved on any given day, production wise, takes precedence over how much sleep that people are going to get. So it's
Yes.
that's my guess.
It's the exact same. Obviously, there are sort of limits, right? They can't like keep
Mm,
people awake for 24 hours, but
mm,
if they need to keep people awake most of the day, they'll do it. And if them going a little bit mad and being even more paranoid because they're sleep deprived is an added bonus,
yeah,
Studio Lambert will be quite happy about that.
yeah. But
Yeah.
do you think on a well-being front, in terms of like care for your contestants, that there might be some minimum amount of hours that they sign to say that they will receive? Do you think it could be at that level of like well-being stuff?
I mean, they obviously have a responsibility and they'll have people. I know that you can even see it in the credits of the show. They've got like a psychologist and a psychotherapist, so they have
Hmm.
people there to
Mm.
for the players to talk to if they need it. And yeah, they'll
Okay.
definitely have um, limits in place for how much they can make the players like be on camera and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I I'm guessing there's not a number written down somewhere like
Okay.
you will receive 8 hours sleep every night. I don't think
Hmm.
they would guarantee them that or put it in writing. So I think
Yeah.
there's a bit of like a blurred line there. Like
Yeah.
they'll again, yeah, they're not gonna give them 2 hours of sleep. But
Mm.
I've interviewed various contestants on the podcast. You can go back and
Hmm.
listen to interviews with different contestants from different seasons and stuff. And a few of them have said, yeah, we really don't get much sleep, especially traitors. They've said like, yeah,
Okay.
we go back to the hotel and then an hour later I'm back out. Had to get back out, go back to the castle,
Yeah.
do Traitors Tower. Like
Easily
only had
another
four
2 hours,
hours.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. So a few of them had said like at breakfast, I'm like still half asleep and struggling to
Okay.
focus.
Okay.
So I think that definitely is happening half deliberately. That's what I would
Mm.
say.
Hmm.
We've also got a message from Suzanne. It's not really a question, it's just a really lovely message. So let's hear that.
Hi guys, Suzanne here. I would like to think I am your oldest listener contributor. I'm 70, thank you. Obsessed with Traitors, watched all the ones all over the world a few times, and was really thrilled to have found you tonight, and we'll keep listening. Bye for now.
Thank you, Suzanne. I have a theory about Suzanne's message, Kevin. I'm going to share it with you.
Go on.
Suzanne says she thinks she's our oldest listener. I think Suzanne is Linda in disguise.
There you go.
I think she's sick of all this stuff online about her not being a good traitor. She's decided to prove she's very deceptive. She's adopted a fake persona. She's changed her voice a little bit.
We've seen accents change very recently. If that's not the case, Suzanne, you should apply to go on the show because you sound great, and I think you have the knowledge in terms of all the other versions of the traders. I think you could be a great asset to the next series. So give it some serious consideration, please, Suzanne, if you're
Yes.
not Linda.
Couldn't agree more, Suzanne slash Linda. But that's really cool that you found the podcast. So people are discovering it all the time, and
Yeah.
Suzanne's been watching the show for a really long time. So
Mm.
very excited that she's discovered us. So thank you, Suzanne, for your message. Of course, if you were listening to the last episode or watching on YouTube, you'll know that I'm kind of bribing people by running a competition. So anyone who sends in a voice memo, I am putting you into a draw to potentially win the Traitors, brand new Traitors board game. George and Suzanne, I'll add you to the draw, and at the end of the season, I'll pick out a winner. Again, I have to remind people, I'm sorry, I can't really post this overseas, so
Oh,
uh,
fair.
this will maybe just be sort of a UK only thing. UK and Ireland. Let's go for that.
Okay.
I
Love
bet
that. Love the
unless it,
inclusion.
Kevin, does it cost a fortune to post boxes to Ireland?
Don't think so.
Okay, right.
It's doable. It's
Ireland, you're
doable.
in. You're in.
You're making big bucks on this podcast, so I'm sure you can manage it.
To celebrate the new Irish Traitors, I will include Ireland in
Yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Now, uh, listeners, remember, Kevin and I have been trying to deceive one another throughout this podcast in our game of lying and deception. But before we reveal our lies, we've got a few things to tell you about. First of all, Kevin, tell us about your pod. Where can we find you? Tell us more.
Yeah, so my podcast is called Things Gay People Like, and it is a pop culture podcast where every episode I talk to someone about something they like. So a film, a TV show, a musical act. And in the intro, I mentioned the Wicked episode. And Matthew, you are my most recent guest actually on the podcast to talk about
Yay.
Wicked in the run up to the film being released. And then in the aftermath, where you told me what you thought of it. And you were a wonderful guest, and it was lovely to have you on. And yeah, the podcast is on hiatus at the moment, which I enjoy. I enjoy making it, but I also enjoy not making it. And it'll be back at some point. But yeah, so Things Gay People Like is the podcast. If you want to hear more from me, but specifically if you want to hear more from Matthew, which I'm sure you do.
And I'll put the link to the podcast in the episode description. And it genuinely is like one of my favorite podcasts. I get very excited when there's a new episode. I
Thank
always
you.
listen. I'm not just saying that because Kevin's here.
You're
I
very
mean, that's
kind.
basically how I found Kevin because had been listening to
Yeah,
your podcast.
yeah. And now
And
we're friends, I would say, actual friends. We met up in Bognor Regis, of all places, about this time last year.
yeah,
But the other thing I want to just recommend, you mentioned the thing about recommending something, and I have a little
yes.
recommendations thing on my podcast. So I wanted to take the opportunity, and I was trying to think of a way to link it into the traders, but I can't. I went to see the Robbie Williams Monkey film, and I know it's not doing very well. I thought it was great. I saw it 3 times. But so between that and Wicked, which I've seen 7 times, I've been busy at the cinema, and I thought it was excellent. So I would recommend that to people because I don't think it's doing very well.
Yes, I saw you posted about it on Instagram saying that
Mm.
you actually really enjoyed it. Uh,
Yeah.
I I have no feelings either way about Robbie Williams. I actually don't mind him. I don't think I'm going to go and see it at the cinema, but I do want to see it, whenever maybe it comes on streaming. I would like to watch it just so that I can, because I actually have only heard good things about it.
Yeah.
So at some point I
Everyone who
will watch it.
actually sees it is like, it's really good.
Yeah.
But I can't think of a link between it and the traders. So, but I wanted to mention it
Well,
anyway.
maybe because in the film, Robbie's not really Robbie. He's played by like a chimp, a CGI chimp. There's the idea of
Yes.
like disguise and facade and pretense
Yes.
or
And
something.
it's something being underneath what you can see or something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Love
go
it.
for
Love it.
that.
Love it.
As for this podcast, if you've enjoyed, please just subscribe or leave a review on whatever platform you're using. You can also follow the podcast on social media. So we're on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Trade Hour Podcast. And I should add here, I'm now going back on myself. You can watch the podcast, but only on YouTube now. Briefly, you could watch it on Spotify, but I've had to change that because, as Aretha Franklin once said to Mariah Carey, they're playing games.
Oh,
So,
really?
so
What's happening? Or you can tell me off air.
tell you offline. I
Yeah,
mean, I'm
okay.
exaggerating very much, but
Okay.
it's. I've discovered it's more sensible to just have the audio version.
Cool.
Apart from the fact that it takes literal hours to upload videos to Spotify,
Okay, fine.
and some people are like, "Hey, why is the podcast taking so long?" I'm just going to put the audio on Spotify, and
Cool.
if you really want to watch, it's on YouTube, and you can watch it there,
Yeah,
which a lot of
yeah.
people have been doing, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I've seen that lots of interesting comments and stuff, and it's great to see the podcast expanding and being on other platforms and getting out to more people. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah, really exciting. And wherever you're watching or listening, you can leave comments. You can do that on YouTube. You can do it on Spotify. You can do it on the social media places that I mentioned. And you can email me if you want. You could email me at thetradehourpodcast@gmail.com. Or, of course, if you want to be part of our competition, or you just want to be like George and Suzanne, or you've got a thought to share, or you've got an amazing question that you desperately need to ask me and my co-host, you could send a little voicemail to memo.fm/ the Trader podcast. A couple of final things before Kevin and I reveal our deceptions. I've got another thank you to say to someone who donated on coffee.com. So that's the page where if you feel like it, you can send a little donation to help the podcast keep going. It's ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. That link's in the episode description too. Someone calling themselves next of kin. No idea who this person is. It says, I'm being sarcastic. It says, enjoying the podcast even more this season. Great to watch and listen on YouTube as I potter around my kitchen. Guests have been great, and the highlight clips on codes and Armani splaining are hilarious. Keep it up. Thank you to
Nice. The
person who's
guests,
definitely not my relative.
the guests have been great until this episode, unfortunately. But
No,
I
you
do
stop
agree
it.
about the other ones. Yeah.
Another wee reminder that I'm going to be attending a live screening of the Traitors finale. So, in fact, last year, Kevin, we were in the same place watching, well, kind of the same place watching the finale with other
Yeah.
people.
I didn't go to the bar actually. I stayed in my little chalet and I really regret it because I feel like it would have been an amazing experience to
Yeah,
see it in public. So you're going to this
I
I assume you're going in some kind of special guest capacity.
obviously
Yeah.
I'm on the VIP list.
Hmm.
Yeah, I got like comp tickets and stuff.
Yeah. And so what,
Except
at the
I
Two
didn't.
Brewers, is it?
So at the Two Brewers in Clapham in London, Friday 24th. So they're gonna air the finale on a big screen, and Maddie from season one is hosting. And you get to like apparently you can like meet Maddie and get a picture with her and stuff like. Maybe you don't get. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. I don't know if you get a picture. My aim is to get a picture with Maddie
Oh yes.
and have a little chat with her.
And Mina is going to be there at the end and she's going to win. And I can't wait for it.
We shall see.
Hopefully.
And the link to that is in the episode description too. Two Brewers. You could just Google it too. It's really, really easy.
Hmm.
Uh, so, Kevin, we have been playing a game. We've been trying to fool each other throughout this whole episode and be traitors and the trader traitor. I told you a lie. I'm telling you now. I confess, I have betrayed you. Did you lie to me at some point?
Yeah.
Okay. I do you want to you have got any guess? Do you want to start? Do you want to guess what I might have lied about, or do you need
I,
some
th-
extra thinking time?
I think you just didn't talk to your colleague about the traders today in work.
You think that was my lie?
Yeah.
That was absolutely not my lie. I genuinely
I
had a
couldn't.
meeting with someone who I hadn't seen since before
Hmm.
Christmas, and he was really eager to catch up on the traitors, so we had a big chat about it. That was
I
all
feel like everything
totally
else you
true.
said was like just about the show. What else could you have
Hmm.
said?
What could I have said?
Do you want to reveal, or
I
do you want to guess mine?
no,
Which
I'll reveal.
okay.
I did lie about the show.
Oh, go
I
on.
made up something. I actually thought you clocked me because I thought when I said it, you looked funny.
Oh, go on.
Uh,
Yeah.
I said that at the very end, Claudia came into Traitor's Tower and she joked with Mina and Linda and said, "Oh, we should get you cocktails." And I made
Yeah.
up this really stupid thing, and I said, "Oh, that's a callback to season one. She made that joke before to the players." She didn't. I just made that up.
Okay, that's a good one. But I was like, I don't remember. I barely remember season one. He must be right. I did have a little moment of thinking, I don't know what that is. Okay, good lie,
Yeah,
good lie.
yeah. Your lie. I think you. I'm speculating a lot here. I think you forgot to play the game for most of the episode and hurried one in at the last minute. I think you didn't see the Robbie Williams film 3 times and see Wicked 7 times. Is that your lie?
You're saying both of them are are a
Oh,
lie. Pick one. One of them is a
pick one
lie.
is that you didn't see the Robbie film 3 times.
Yeah, yeah, true. I was like panicking. I was like, oh shit, I haven't said a lie. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have seen Wicked 7 times though. How
Oh
many times have you
wow.
seen it?
I've only seen it 3.
Right, okay.
So again, I was talking to about it with my colleagues today, and they've all seen it once, but we might do a little
Okay.
group trip next week. So, and it
Oh,
definitely, this has nothing to do with the Traitors listeners. I'm really sorry, but just listen. I'm assuming in November when part 2 comes out, a lot of cinemas will do like double bills of both.
for
So
sure.
I'll
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
definitely go and do the whole like 5 hours Wicked
Yeah,
marathon.
yeah, yeah. Have you not bought it on digital to get the commentaries, the two commentaries? Anyway,
Uh,
we'll talk about that on my podcast.
No. Yes, I'll come back to
Okay.
your podcast for that. I haven't
Yeah,
bought
yeah,
it.
yeah.
I'm saving it still. I want to cherish it on a big giant screen before I have to
Yeah,
watch
of
it
course,
on
of
a
course,
small
of
screen at
course.
home.
Yeah.
Uh, Listeners, I will be back to discuss episode 5 of The Traitors in probably less than 24 hours. And Traitors US is beginning tonight in the States, so The Trader will be covering that too. David Bloomberg, who was my co-host on the previous episode, is taking the reins on Traitors US season 3. He's got lots of like really awesome guest co-hosts lined up. And then I'll join him at the end of January once Traitors UK is finished. Thank you, Kevin, for joining me. It's been a pleasure as always. I
Thank
hope you've had a
you.
nice time talking about this episode of The Traitors.
So fun. Thank you.
Thank you, and listeners, until next time, keep us on your trader.